Hello, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the July edition of the Blazor Community Stand-Up. We live stream the second Tuesday of every month, talking about all things Blazor. And I'm so excited to be here with my wonderful co-host, John, and our special guest today, Steve.
Hello.
All right, now, you know how things usually go. We're going to kick it off with some community links. And then we're going to get to the meat of today's discussion, which is all about how Steve and his team have used Blazor WebAssembly to build their product powered for .tv. That's what we're chatting about. You can see the topic right there at the bottom. So without further ado, let's get right into it. I want to start off by sharing some community links of some interesting articles and content that I've been seeing over the past month in the Blazor community. Thanks to everyone who's writing things and publishing them. That's what kind of makes all of this super fun and interesting, is seeing the content you write. So the first thing that I wanted to share is a little bit of an article about a new API that we introduced in Blazor for .NET 5, which is support for a file upload component. Since we've released it in .NET 5, we've gotten a few questions in the GitHub about how to use it or how to augment or add additional features to the file upload component. And whenever I notice something like that, where we see lots of activity on GitHub about a topic, I try and find some articles, clarifying articles that can answer some of the questions that you have about this. And in this particular case, there's a wonderful article written here on C# Corner all about using the file upload component in Blazor. This article covers some of the fundamentals of the API, how you can actually use this new component. And then it provides some additional details, like how to add support for a progress bar in your file upload component using the upload callback that's provided, and how to hook it up to a backend upload endpoint that you can implement in ASP.NET Core. So if you've ever had some question marks about how to use the file upload component, or you're interested in integrating it into your applications, check out this article. It's a great one. And of course, there's tons of other helpful ones in addition to our docs.microsoft page on file uploads. So that's super fun. Now, If you're tinkering with file uploads, you've probably already made the commitment or have started using Blazor for some application that you're building. You might not be there yet. You might be wondering, hey, should I be using Blazor to build this new side project idea I have? Or maybe your company is thinking about building a new internal app or public app, and we're trying to kind of think about what technologies we want to use. And for that, I wanted to share an article that was written recently by David Pine on Dev2 that's kind of all about building single page applications with Blazor WebAssembly. What I really like about this article is it kind of gets into the under the hood meat of the technology of Blazor. So specifically WebAssembly, how that works, how Blazor has built on top of it to allow developers to run .NET code in the browser. Of course, it's not just about the technology. It's also going to dive into the ecosystem around Blazor. So things from tooling to security, adoption, kind of the familiarity, how it hooks on to existing parts of ASP.NET Core. So if you've ever been in a situation where you case for Blazor, or you're just looking for a complete kind of exploration of Blazor WebAssembly and the ecosystem, this article is a great place to get started as reference for yourself or any colleagues or coworkers that you want to share it out with. So thanks, David Pine, for writing this piece. I thought it was super helpful.
I thought he did a great job with it, and he answered a lot of questions. You know, I got a chance to help review it as he was writing it. And
oh, cool.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. You know, I said, hey, you answered this, but what about this? And, you know, so he talked about like how it compares and how you make the decisions and why it's useful. So yeah.
So this article's also got the John touch on it. So that's how you know it's extra. It's extra special, nice and informative, and it's got the John touch. Let's say that you've kind of made the commitment to start using Blazor WebAssembly for a side project or an internal app or anything like that. And you kind of want to get through a full-on deep dive of all things Blazor. So we do something really interesting here that I personally love with .NET is we dedicate each month to a particular topic area within .NET. So last month, for the month of June, there was tons of content and live streams all about Blazor. I believe this month it might be around F#. Correct me if I'm wrong, John. Yes, F#. Right. So one of the things that I participated in last month as a moderator was a live stream all about learning Blazor. This was co-hosted by Jeff Fritz. It was really fun. He went through some of the Blazor Learn modules that are available, kind of gave it his own Jeff Fritz touch, which is always so fun to see. So, you know, if you've ever wanted video content that's kind of an end-to-end on Blazor, this is a great place to start. It's about 2 hours. I find it to be a great accompaniment to a lot of the other content, video content on Blazor. And of course, stay tuned for all of the other Let's Learn .NET topics. I mentioned, you know, F#'s happening this month. We've got more topics coming up. So there's always opportunities to learn more about the ecosystem.
I love the Let's Learn events because they're very focused. They're very beginner friendly. And so there's live Q&A, but it's kind of starts with it's okay if you don't know anything. And even if you do, you'll learn something, but even, you know, it's especially friendly for people that are just brand new. So this was an area where we thought, you know, this was useful as we were planning it out to just make sure that we had because we do these Blazor shows, and a lot of the time people are like, what even is this? I'm a new web developer, you know? So it's nice to be able to say, go check out this thing and you'll learn.
Yeah. Everyone was a beginner at some point. And I think part of being a healthy community and ecosystem is there's always new people coming in to learn. So you can never have too little beginner focused content. And even sometimes as someone who works on the framework or writes Blazor often, I like to go back and just see what questions people are asking or what the beginner content is looking like. Like, what's your experience as a first time Blazor developer? It's a great question to answer. Cool. So my last community link is going to be a segue in today's topic. One of the questions that we get a ton on the stream is people want to hear stories about developers and engineering teams who have had success with Blazor WebAssembly. Now, we do have online a showcase on the .NET homepage of applications that are built using Blazor Server or Blazor WebAssembly that you can check out. But there's never a shortage of these stories about people who've actually taken Blazor to production and put Blazor applications in the hands of users. And we have one of those stories to share today. To introduce it, I want to talk about a blog post that was published by Steve Peirce, who is our guest today, about why and how they chose Blazor WebAssembly for the SPA application that they're building, which is powered for TV. It talks about the engineering team, the kind of decision to use Blazor, how they kind of started off from several choices in the JavaScript ecosystem and eventually came to Blazor as an option. And also talks a little bit about some of the pain points, how they resolve them, and some of the joys of using Blazor as well. Now, you can check out this article and read it over on the community links, or we also have the man himself, Steve Peirce, today to talk a little bit about how they've been using Blazor WebAssembly at Powered for TV and share a little bit about it with us. You want to take it away, Steve?
Hello, thank you. Yeah, I'm just to read through the article for the next minutes. So, cool. Thank you very much for having me. Super excited to be here. So I've just got a few slides to start us off to give a little bit of context as to our journey, and then we'll jump into some actual demos. Hopefully it'll be a lot of fun. So first of all, who am I? I'm Steve Peirce. I've got 10 years experience as a software engineer. By day, I'm working as a principal software engineer at mCopa. But by night or evenings, weekends, I'm co-founder of Powered for TV, which is a platform for watching independent wrestling on demand. So that's why you see a lot of half-naked people in the pictures. It's built in Blazor, and that's why I'm here. So a bit of background. I've always been a full stack developer, spending lots of time with ASP.NET, web forms, MVC throughout my career, dabbling with SPAs. And a couple of years ago, my brother-in-law, Rich, came to me with a business idea. He said, we're going to build the Netflix of independent wrestling. And I was like, what? And he's like, yep, that's right. We're going to build the best place to watch wrestling shows, see our favorite wrestlers. I'm going to build a real community around it. So I was like, yep, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. But then I was like, how am I going to build this? Like the back end, fine, but the front end. So recently been dabbling with React.js, using it a bit at work. It's nice. I like the component model. So I crack on and start building the prototype, and it's going well. I like it, at least at first. So it's a little while in that I start to realize that JavaScript's not my favorite. I'm missing some of that statically typed language features. So of course I moved to TypeScript. Now, for someone who's not regularly in the ecosystem on a day-to-day basis, it's quite a lot to do. So setting up CI/CD pipelines, VS Code, just getting everything up and running and getting my head around it. It's at least a weekend I've lost. And then thinking about SEO and realizing that I actually probably want to do some server-side rendering. So then we start looking at Webpack and Babel and following tutorials, kind of half understanding what I'm doing, but, just blindly doing it to some degree. And it's another weekend wasted. I haven't done a huge amount. Then one of my JavaScript buddies is just like, why are you using NPM? You should be using Yarn. It's much better. It's much faster. So I was like, yeah, why not? I don't know what else I'm using. Might as well use Yarn as the package manager. So we get into a place where actually the prototype is kind of coming together and it's all right. But then you start looking at what happens when you install the packages, and you've just got so many vulnerabilities. You realize you don't have a clue what you're bringing in. You start trying to update some of the things, and they're obsolete and deprecated. And it's just this huge can of worms for someone who's not doing it daily. So for me personally, I ended up quite frustrated. And again, this was evenings and weekends. So it's around this time that the pandemic started. And Rich, my brother-in-law, we came together and we decided, actually, let's use this. Like, we know there's not going to be any wrestling shows for a year. Let's use this to reset. So we had John come and join us and Josh join us, and we founded Powered 4 TV. The 4 for fact that there's 4 of us, and we could get the domain name. So yeah, we did a .NET created a new project, started hacking about to get a feeling for it, and you know what? Actually, we really, really liked it. So we quickly recreated the prototype that I'd done in React. What's really nice is that we weren't wasting and losing lots of time understanding the language, tools, packages, and all of this other stuff. We got to learn the nuances of Blazor rather than a whole other ecosystem. So it made us super, super productive. And just the way that you work with Blazor, like all of the dependency injection, all of your NuGet packages, it's all the same. So it's really good to get going. So probably for the rest of this presentation, I'm going to stop sharing slides. Instead, probably have a little look at what is Blazor, have a look at some of the testing, some of the performance that we've done, and questions. So yeah, please ask questions along the way as we go.
Steve, I'm curious to know, you mentioned that when you kind of had this reset, you immediately reached for Blazor. Was Blazor something you'd already heard about being part of the .NET ecosystem, or how did you arrive at that decision to use it?
Yeah, so we'd heard about Blazor in like the media, listening to podcasts and shows like this, but I think we wanted something equivalent to a JavaScript single page app. So I think for a long while, it was only the server side that was production ready. And the reason we wanted that wasn't really for any reason other than it was kind of our expectation. So I think it was about that time where the client side had landed. So it felt like a good time to give it a go.
Yeah, timing definitely worked out very well with you with the release of Blazor WebAssembly. I think it was May 2020 that it came out. So
yeah, this is it. So it's really good.
I'm curious, as you moved over, how much was complete like throw out and rewrite, or how much, like how reusable things were?
Yeah, really good question. So where we'd written a lot of initial components and things in React, actually it translates very well. So we could effectively one-for-one copy our components from React into Blazor, a little jiggery pokery just to get the syntax right. But yeah, it worked quite nicely.
Nice.
So the amount of waste we had wasn't too much. And a lot of what we did is, as we built components, we got the scoping wrong a bit, but then kind of refactored those. So I don't think we've really like binned anything per se. It's more reshaping. Cool. Awesome. So I thought I've been talking about the site. Let's just start and go to the site and just have a little look at it. So yeah, this is powered for TV in its current iteration. As mentioned, it's a Blazor WebAssembly site. You can click around. We've got various pages with URLs, as you'd expect. We've got lots of different shows. So yeah, this is all Blazor. So I thought to start with, we maybe just have a little look at what's going on, just for anyone who's not super familiar with what WebAssembly is. So if I just quickly go to application, and I'm just going to clear the site data and come to this network tab. And I'm just going to refresh the page. Give it a moment. Then yeah, let's look at this request. Here we go. So, okay. Oh, sorry. Cool. So we've got lots of DLLs here. So these are dotnet DLLs, which pretty weird, right? Like, how is this working in the browser? So if we come across and have search for WASM, we'll see that there's this dotnet WASM or WebAssembly. So this is the magic right here. This is how it works. This is effective. Oh, WebAssembly is a bit like JavaScript in the sense that all modern browsers know how to run it. And so it's used as a compile target for a lot of other languages to build to, and then run inside the browser. What is interesting in the .NET world and Blazor world, we aren't at the moment compiling everything straight to WebAssembly. Instead, the runtime has been compiled to WebAssembly. So it's actually this runtime that's taking our DLLs and making the app run. And it's talking to JavaScript, or it's interoperating with JavaScript to actually update what we see on the page. You don't need to know too much or follow that in too much detail, but it's kind of an interesting, it's interesting to know approximately how it's working. And then you can make some decisions later on when you're thinking about how you actually host your Blazor app.
Got a few questions coming in with that. Marcus is asking, what is the current minimum size of WebAssembly? And then also wondering about, like how long it takes to load. So, how do you balance that as a kind of consumer facing site with load time and that sort of thing?
Yep, for sure. So we're currently running in .NET 6 Preview 5, and with that, there's a bunch of optimizations that we get. So this, hang on, if I just run on my local host, just for a comparison.
I think I know what's coming up, but I'm excited for it, as well as I'm sure folks in the audience will be intrigued as well. Yeah.
Oh, hang on a second. Wait for it.
Yeah. So now you're loading up the local version of your application, which is running on .NET 6 Preview 5, correct?
Yep, this is it. So I'm going to do exactly what I did before. Oh. One thing I've noticed that having the browser dev tools open, things seem to run slightly slower than when you don't have them open. Mm-hmm. It's not a huge amount, but it is noticeable. So I think sometimes when you're checking performance, it's being like a user without the dev tools open is a bit better. But yeah, like if we compare the .NET WASM before any optimizations have been put in, there's 969 kilobytes, so nearly a megabyte. Whereas when we bring that to production, there's a few different optimizations we can make, but this is currently down to 398 kilobytes, so more than half, which is pretty crazy when you think about what this is doing of like interpreting all those DLLs. What's also, and we can talk a little bit about what it's doing to bring that optimization in a moment. But also, if we look at the size of all the DLLs that are currently downloaded, it's currently for our app 1.1 megabytes, but without any optimizations, and like 7 megabytes. So what happens when we actually publish our application? It does a thing called linking, which is like tree shaking in JavaScript, where it goes through and looks at what code don't I need, like what's not being used, and it effectively removes it all, leaving just what's needed. And it doesn't do it just like by being like, oh, you're not using that DLL. It also looks at like inside the DLL. So if I just sort this by size order, we'll notice here that the system private core lib is 1.1 megabytes, but the biggest, the same file in production is 361 kilobytes. So we get a big saving, and the optimizations here are just getting better and better, and the apps are getting smaller and smaller as the previews of .NET 6 are coming.
Yeah, 1.1 megabytes is a pretty good size for, you know, basically a fully functional streaming app.
Yeah. So, I mean, you compare that to, you know, whatever, Netflix or something else like that, right? You're doing all the video and all that. And the amount that you're downloading for a video, but even for a lot of images, you know, a lot of websites will download megabytes of images, you know, and think nothing of it. So
yeah, this, and like for our use case anyway, we're a streaming website, so people are going to be streaming lots of content. But yeah, like it's pretty fast. So if you need the small list thing, you can possibly look at a different hosting model, like the server hosting, where instead of shipping all of these DLLs down to the client, it's doing everything on the server, and it's got a SignalR circuit open with your browser. And so then it's just shipping down the wire very small amounts of data to say, like, you need to update the web page this way. So it's just almost the deltas for the site that are being shipped down the wire then. So if size is your number one concern, there is an option for you there as well.
Some other questions on kind of the front end stuff. Another from Marcus, he's got a lot of questions coming in, but question here on transition, animation, and then just, you know, like curious also what you're using. Are you using like a front end framework, or how are you handling some of those like design and CSS issues and stuff?
Yeah, awesome. So we haven't got too much in whooshy design effects and features. Very much like it's a bit of a minimal, but at the end of the day, a lot of this is just boils down to HTML and CSS. So there's no reason like if I was a mobile app, we just haven't done it, but there's no reason instead of that just popping in there, it couldn't do nice transitions and slide animations, and just like you're used to with other bits. You just haven't got to it as a priority yet. We're using Bootstrap as our base at the moment, just because we already have familiarity with it. So a lot of like if I look at some of our components, say this is Visual Studio with a weird skin rider. Oh, looking in the wrong place. Yeah, so we've got this is our actual production code. So be kind. But yeah, like for our button, we've just got a button, and then we're passing in some Bootstrap syntax. So we're adding in button and having some options for like button outline success. So for our styling, like this just ultimately boils down to some Bootstrap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's but like, you can use any UI framework that you want, really.
Yeah, I know in the past I've used Tailwinds for some demo applications, but it's all CSS in the end. So if it can work in a standard plain old JavaScript application or not just a plain HTML page, it'll work in Blazor as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And another thought on animations that just came to mind, I'm not sure if you're leveraging them in your app, but Blazor does have support for SVGs, and we've made a few improvements to it in .NET 6. And with SVGs, you can do all sorts of fun and interesting things. So that's always another option. And that's what I think is like really great about working with Blazor WebAssembly is a lot of the like stuff that exists as a web standard, like SVGs or transitions in CSS, you can use in Blazor too.
Mm-hmm. I'm personally excited about that. All these shows, we use a simple generator. It's basically like a meme generator thing to create the thumbnails. And I just set that up in Glitch. It's just a simple one page, and it's got some JavaScript. And now, but I love SVG, and I like am hacking around in the SVG with template replacement and stuff. And so I'm excited to see Blazor SVG support improve. I want to redo those with that.
Nice. That's good to hear.
Yeah. We'll get a designer in to help us.
I mean, it doesn't look bad. I mean, for a small, I think it looks pretty compelling for a small team, and there's always, things where things can be, everyone is a critic when it comes to design, but looks good to me.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's we'll take that. That's going on the reviews.
I've got a question. Well, I had a question when I saw this come up, and Wayne also has the same question, which is, how are you handling the authentication and authorization stuff?
Awesome. So we're actually using Auth0 at the moment.
Oh, cool.
So if I just click join. So yeah, like we're using Auth0, so we've bounced off to Auth0. If I dive into the app, we can have a little look at what that's actually doing. Sorry, one moment.
Don't mind. It's definitely always interesting seeing how people lay out their applications.
Yeah. So just while I find it to show you, we've got this public website, so everything's grouped in here. As I mentioned, we have the server hosting for the client. So it's actually the client which has all of our pages, our Blazor pages in. And the server is effectively just serving up the client. And the reason we do that is because we pre-render the site, which we can have a look at in a little bit. So if I just actually, let me find where I just clicked that join button. Yeah, so our join button is effectively just a link to, let's look at this login. So an interesting component I'll talk about first, there's this authorized view. So you can bring this in at any point, and then you can choose what is displayed when you're authorized, not authorized, or authorizing. We've got a bit of duplication here, but you know, it is what it is. So when you're not authorized, we're adding a link to our authentication page with login. That, if I can find it.
So your integration with auth is you redirect to the Auth0 login and sign up handlers. Are you needing to use any third-party components for that, or is it purely just a redirect?
It's a redirect. So
okay.
Yeah, let's go back to this actually. So we're using all of the standard libraries, nothing Auth0 specific. So we're doing like the the OIDC authentication and authorization core. And then we're using this, which is another standard Blazor component, which makes our life quite easy.
Can you zoom in a bit just so we can all catch the name of that component? Remote authenticator view.
Yeah. And this, we pass in an action. So I think the action that we pass in is login, I think. And this knows what to do with our configuration that we've set up in here. Oh, now I've zoomed in too much. This knows to send us over to Auth0, and we set a callback link. So if I now log in here, it will do its business. Maybe not. We've maybe got something to improve there. But yeah, it then redirects us back to this page.
Nice. What about hosting? Is it cloud hosted or is it?
Yep. So we are the server app. We are Dockerizing. So we've just got a simple Docker file. So we're building it in our pipeline and then Dockerizing it. We're not doing the build in the Docker file at the moment, just because it's faster in our CI/CD pipeline. But yeah, we're dropping that into Docker, and then we're pushing it in Azure to the Azure Container Registry, and then it's being hosted in an app service plan.
Oh, nice.
Got it.
Yeah.
You mentioned your integration with Auth0. Does your app have any other integrations with third-party services? For example, are you using Stripe for payments or anything like that?
Yes. Yep. We're using Stripe for payments. So it's something that we're actually in the process of tidying up at the moment. Because we've got a Stripe JavaScript. So we haven't quite abolished JavaScript in its entirety. We still need Stripe at the moment. Sorry, some JavaScript at the moment. So this is a lot of the boilerplate code that you can get from the Stripe website. But ultimately what it looks like is it brings in this box here for you and will handle all of the payment side. So we don't have to know anything about any credit cards. We don't have to handle anything. By integrating with that, they're taking that burden off of us, which I'm quite thankful for.
Got it.
I think that is a really compelling thing with Blazor and JavaScript, is that for custom code that I have to write myself, I'd prefer to do that in C#, but I can use JavaScript libraries, and it's just standard. It's just web standard. So there's no reason I can't use that. I don't have to rewrite, or I can interoperate. So
yeah, this is it. And I think like we can neaten this up, and I think some of what we've done, we can interop better with the JavaScript and pull some of this into C#. But we kept it simple to start with, and now we iterate and improve on it. One thing that's an improvement that we can do, which we've started working on, like if I look at the JavaScript that we're bringing in. Oops.
I think you might need to refresh. Yeah.
Oh yeah, thank you.
I wish they had a retroactive record feature on DevTools. That would be a lifesaver.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we're currently bringing in our Stripe JavaScript, and we're pulling in a JavaScript module for Stripe. But on this page, we have no reason to. We don't need it at all. So an improvement that we're doing is to actually bring that in when we need it. So once we get to the join page, we'll bring in the JavaScript. Then, so I think there's JavaScript isolation using modules. So we'll use that, and that's an improvement we can make. And it's one of the things that Lighthouse complains about, having this JavaScript pulled in.
Yeah.
So that's an improvement, but not just that. Like this whole join flow, like we don't really need to bloat our application with these pages. So we're currently bringing in the code and the DLLs for this, but in reality, they're going to be hit not very often. So we can lazy load that. And actually, we already lazy load a couple of bits, like our cookie policy and privacy policy. It's just reams of text. So actually, we've just lazy loaded that. So if I just go back to our home page and clear the browser history.
And for this lazy loading, are you using the lazy load feature in Blazor that shipped with .NET 5, or are you using something in the browser, or?
Yeah, good question. So let's just, hang on, I'll clear the application cache, and then we'll give a fair test, and then I'll just quickly show you what we're doing. Let's refresh that. Oh, sorry, I'll come to my network tab. I just filter by DLLs. Okay, let's clear that. I think we're done. And then if I come down here and click this policy link, you'll notice that we now put in this DLL at this point. So we didn't bring it in beforehand. So this DLL is 21.7 kilobytes. So, it's a bit of a saving.
Yeah. Well, especially probably, I mean, you can tell from metrics, but it's probably very rarely that people are actually viewing policies. So.
Yeah.
It's just me clicking through, looking at my lazy loading.
Yeah. Or occasionally like spiders, web spiders, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Question related. Oh, sorry.
Oh, did you want to see how we do that quickly, or did you want to?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah. Awesome. So we've split out those pages. Oops. Here we go, into its own separate DLL. So these just here, nice. Inside the CS proj here, I actually have to use a little special bit of syntax to tell the application that we want to lazy load this DLL. So by doing that, it's not going to bring it in automatically. And then, so inside of our app.razor, we have a router, and the router is responsible for looking at the URL. So in here, like this /cookie policy, and choosing which page to go through. So by default, we pass in an assembly where it finds all of the pages inside our current assembly. So inside this client, but we can also pass it in some additional assemblies to look at for other pages. So if I just scroll down here and we look at this callback, which is passed to the router, we're currently having a look at what the URL ends with to decide, do we need to load this DLL, yes or no? So if we do hit one of these URLs, we'll load up the assembly and we'll add it to our loaded assemblies. And then Blazor knows how to handle that. And we also have this navigating option, so we can show a little loading screen whilst we're navigating, whilst it's doing that lazy load. So I don't know if
yeah. I implemented the lazy load feature as part of .NET 5, and it's always a little bit of like an out-of-body experience when I see somebody using it, because I've always been looking at it from the other end of writing the implementation. So it's pretty neat that you're taking advantage of that in your app.
Yeah, no, thank you for writing it. It's good. I like it.
Yeah. I wanted to pop out a question from the chat, and it was something that you teased a little bit earlier. And I figured this is a great time to bring it up, if you don't mind, which is about pre-rendering. You mentioned that you were using it earlier. Can you talk a little bit about how that's been, how it's set up, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So first, I should probably just share what is pre-rendering. So if I just refresh this page, we'll do it against my local, as I'll be able to make a change against this in a moment. We'll see, I'm looking at the document, so we get this local host here. So this is the HTML we're bringing back. So this image is nice and big. We can probably resize these images as we're told by Lighthouse, but yeah, we're getting this HTML, and we can see it in there. So that's everything. Pre-rendering is giving us that. So if for contrast, let me turn pre-rendering off and see the difference. So I'm just going to come to our server project, and we've got a host page here. I think I was having a play around before. I think I haven't rerun this. So this was when I hit run. This was WebAssembly.
Do you mind zooming in just a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in this host, this is like our main page, which has all of the JavaScript and all of the everything to set up. We've got this this component which tells us to render our Blazor app. So this is saying, please render an app, which is our app over here, which is in our client. And we can choose the render mode. So there's a couple of different options. But we're interested in the WebAssembly ones. So there's WebAssembly and WebAssembly pre-rendered. So we were on WebAssembly pre-rendered, but if I just rerun this app now, swapping to just normal WebAssembly, and we'll just give it a moment. And another moment.
Now, for those who are watching over the live stream, we're currently building the app. So,
yeah, thank you. Not sure my screen sharing is eating my
screen sharing.
You know what?
A lot.
Yeah, we have this hypothesis internally on the team that if you are live streaming or not live streaming, sharing your screen and trying to do a build, the build is always 5 times slower. That's kind of like the cardinal rule of screen sharing is your builds will be 5 times slower.
Yeah, that definitely sounds about right.
Yeah.
Say, oh, I think everything's about 5 times slower. Cool. So as this loads up, what we're expecting to see, like you'll see here, that we got loads of loading swirlies, although we haven't put a swirly in, so we need that SVG. So if I just do this again, and we'll look at the network tab and hit go. And if we take a look at our document that we have here, you'll see there's hardly anything in here. So we've got this div here, which is has an interesting comment, which I think the Blazor uses, but there's just nothing much here. For comparison to our application when we pre-rendered it, we've got all of this content, so all of these sliders already there. And because this isn't here, when I refresh this, we'll see that we have a slightly not as good experience for the customer. So people often will put in a little loading bit there. But when we load the application, we're going to have to make all of the API calls out to fetch the data. So what pre-rendering does is it actually does a lot of the work for us on the server and then ships down the HTML, and that gives us a better experience for customers, and it helps crawlers. So yeah, the magic here is this WebAssembly and WebAssembly pre-render, but it's not just that. So if we turn this WebAssembly pre-render on, you'll notice we've also got this persist component state underneath it. I just comment that out for a moment. We'll see. Oh, and re-render without that. We're expecting the site to pre-render, and this 5 times slower build that we're all enjoying. But we're expecting the site to pre-render as when we originally did it, but we'll have a problem. The problem that we'll maybe demonstrate in a moment is that the pre-rendered site doesn't know anything about the application state. So it will show the HTML, as hopefully we'll see in a moment. When the server responds. Come on. Again, I think this is the curse of screen share as opposed to. Cool. So yeah, it's very kindly slowed everything down for us, so we can see. But what happened there is, if I do it again, the page is rendered with the HTML, but then we have a flash of loading. This is really annoying. And this is what was in .NET 5, and .NET 6 has introduced a way of fixing this annoying loading flash, which is very pronounced on a site like ours. It might not be as obvious on another. And they introduced the ability to persist component state, which we're very happy and thankful for. So what happens is it will effectively cache any data that we give it and store it in a comment in the HTML as some encoded JSON. And then when the application reopens, it will read that data back in, and we'll avoid that loading flash. So there's a few bits to it. It's a bit confusing when you first see it, but once you do it a few times, it kind of makes sense. But step number one, we have to have this special component in the page. Oops, let me go to, sorry, I've gone to the wrong place. I want to go to our client and this app.razor. Let me hide this. So we've done a bit of an implementation, which I think we can improve upon. But effectively, we've got state for shows, channels, and latest show. If I look at the state specifically for shows, there's an application state, which is a component application state. So this is injected into our code. So I'll try not to scroll too much. We register a callback with that, which says, like, you know, so if we were on the server, once you finish rendering on the server, run this callback. And what this callback does for us is we take everything that's in our state. So we'll make our API calls and get all of the information that we want, and we're putting it in into a C# class, and we're persisting that in JSON using a key. So it's a bit like a cache, or it is very similar to any cache that you've used, except when the client comes back in and loads up the application, it will follow down here and be like, have you got anything in your cache? Nope, I'll jump out of here. But actually, yes, you do. I will then deserialize that and bring that back into my application state. So I'm not sure if I explained that perfectly, but it's very cool. And there's some good articles that will explain it well.
So I guess what you're able to do with this setup is you're able to say, hey, when you make the jump from pre-rendered state to running on the client, here's some data that's already been cached that you can use when you make that transition instead of having to refetch everything.
Yeah, exactly that.
That's
yeah. And one consideration is how much you put in your cache. So we found that putting loads and loads of information into our cache actually slowed down the initial render. So I'm not sure if you've seen our site, but we've got a whole load of these slide bars, and we've done like huge JSON in. So there's a bit of an optimization. Sorry, I won't keep this moving too much. But as a bit of an optimization, we just pre-rendered these top bits and actually let the bottom bits load on the user's device. So it's kind of a nice balance to get a much faster initial load, as it didn't have to do all of that serializing and deserializing of JSON on load, but still give the user a good experience. And the way we did that was to butcher or to abuse the virtualized component, which was introduced in .NET 5, I think. So we call our channel shows slider, which is what each of those slidey bits are for each show. But only the first few will show on most devices. Then after that, we've got a list of the ID and the name. So at the moment, this is all hard coded, but we wrap that around virtualize. So what that does is if it's not in the DOM, it doesn't render it. So the side effect of this is for our pre-rendering is that these don't get rendered. So we don't make all the additional API calls on the server to fetch that data, and then they load.
Yeah. I got to say, it's pretty neat as a framework developer to see the way that you're using some of the different features that we shipped in .NET 5 and then some of the things we've been working on in .NET 6. It's like, oh, it's cool to see everything assembled into one application. So pretty awesome.
We've got a lot of questions coming in.
Yeah.
And one that I realized I don't think we really talked too much about, but is the actual like video. Like, how's the video being hosted and streamed? Is it just HTML5 video element?
Yeah, so we're using Vimeo at the moment.
Cool.
So yeah, if I'm logged in, let me just pick a random video. I won't play it. So yeah, we're embedding from Vimeo. So yeah, that's currently our best option. There's obviously some security around that to stop you from hosting videos on other sites. But yeah, that's our current option. We were interested at some of like the Amazon cognitive media services and things, but we have a few ideas around there, but
that's simpler. I was imagining storing and streaming all the video, and it's all that's pay someone else to do that, you know.
Yep. Focus on your core product. It's video streaming, so it's a tough feature.
Yeah, and what's nice, like you can do things like chaptering with Vimeo. So it's a few features that we want to build at some point and own this, but for now we don't have to. So we can concentrate on other things.
Let me see. We had another question about how mature testing libraries are, and just kind of in general. I think I saw a test project in there. I don't like to, I understand as a small team, sometimes you don't have time to do like really in-depth testing. So no test shaming, but
yeah. So one of the lessons we learned is you should probably do testing. Like many things, to get going and to get launched, we skipped on the testing. And now when you're a year in, it kind of hurts a little bit. Like there's been a few times where we've broken things or had customer complaints and we're like, whoops, yeah. And we spend too much time having to then manually test our flows. So we are actually doing a couple of layers of testing now, and we're trying to spend some time to backfill and then hopefully test as we go forward. So we're doing component testing. So let me just open up. And what's this file? A badge. Or maybe we'll look at a button actually. So we've kind of split some of our base components into like atoms. So like these are the smallest parts that make up anything. And then we've got the idea of some molecules. So these are like generally a few atoms grouped together. And we often use these components to build up like more complex and larger components or pages. And so as we've been backfilling, we want that confidence that a button works effectively. And so if I just load this button and pretend that we're making an innocent refactor, and actually I break this on click. This on click is no longer going to work, so I remove this @ sign. So now it's gone from being an on-click event callback to just an on-click string. And then hopefully through the magic of test, I should have just run the one test. Usually these tests would run in like milliseconds.
Yeah.
It's okay. We, as our screen sharing rule also applies to test runs. Everything's just 5 times slower.
Yeah, so
Very
we've
cool.
broken, which is nice. And we've not just broken, but we've got quite a clear explanation as to what's gone wrong. So slightly a tongue twister of a thing, but the call on click callback. So we've decided to name our test classes like button should, call on click callback. So what we mean by that is when you click it, the callback should be clicked. So we're using bunit to test our components. So it gives us a nice syntax to be able to render the component. So you'll notice that we're in a Razor file rather than a .cs file. And part of the reason for that is that we can do this syntax and create a component and render it, and then make assertions against it, or in this case, click it.
Nice.
When starting out with our testing, you can do assertions around like the HTML that's rendered. So you could do something like cut, which is component under test, cut dot, I think there's a markup matches, and then say like we're expecting a button and with us, I don't know, like an ID of 1, 2, 3, and so forth. And this was kind of fine at first, but it led to a lot of fragile tests. So instead, we decided to have more tests, but assert specific things on it. For example, we allow you to set the class of the test class. So we've got a test that checks that what the classes that you pass in here are actually represented on the button. So we render the button with that class, find the button, and assert that it should have the class test class.
Yeah. We're definitely big fans of bunit here. For the audience member who asked the question, if you're interested in learning more about testing with bunit, we actually had the creator of bunit, Ejil, on the show a couple of months back. So check out YouTube for that stream. And he dives into some of the things that Steve showcased here and a lot more on testing with bunit. But bunit is definitely a key part of the Blazor ecosystem, particularly for testing. So.
Yeah, and we really like it.
Yeah.
So we're backfilling. We've also got a couple of tests using Playwright. So Playwright's a bit like Selenium.
Yeah.
Which will actually load up the browser and open the pages. So at the moment, we're just testing some like more smoke tests and making sure that every page renders correctly, both on the pre-rendering and on the so pre-rendering on the server and on the client. But in the future, some of our core flows, like being able to log in or sign up, we'll probably add some tests around that.
Cool. Yeah, I will ditto Playwright. We've started to use it over on the ASP.NET Core repo as well for our automated browser testing. So definitely some cool tech.
Yeah. So
we've had. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Carry on.
Well, we've had several questions come up about PWAs, and you know, like way back at the beginning, you showed your scaffolding command you created with PWA support. So yeah, how does the PWA thing work?
Yep. So this is a PWA in the sense that we can click a little install button and install that. We're also using a component that's not Blazor. I think it's from like the PWA builder, which gives us this nice little fly out pop-up and this install powered for, which just effectively links to here. So we're using that as a stopgap for the moment, but yeah, I can install that. And then oh yeah, there we go. It's popped up automatically. So
Nice.
now this is an installed powered for. We did, we're not currently working in offline mode. We made a conscious decision not to after making some mistakes and realizing that we need to understand it a little bit more. Because I think by default, the PWA template, it favors your local version of the app and then will fetch the next version from the server. And that's fine, except I think if you've got, there's some nuances to PWAs which we didn't quite understand, and we ended up having customers stuck on some older versions. I think as well, we didn't help ourselves because we added some caching around some JavaScript and accidentally cached the service worker file, which got some customers stuck. So we turned it off for a while, but I think, yeah, we want to bring it back. It's good.
Yeah. Can you repeat the name of the library or package you use to make the little pop-out descriptor for your app? Because I had not seen that before, and I thought that was very slick.
Yeah,
So
I think it's
PWA install?
Builder.
PWA builder.
Oh yeah, the specific one I will find, but I think it's I think this is built by your colleagues at Microsoft somewhere, and somewhere they've got a bunch of packages.
Yeah.
So I searched around and found PWA install in a GitHub repo.
Yeah, so here you go. There's this.
Oh, that's it. Okay, that is pretty neat.
Yeah, so there's a few bits which yeah, it's just a nice feature, and whilst we're not yet in the app stores, it's a nice way to give that app feel and encourage customers to install that.
Yeah, it's nice.
And then it should as well hide. It's clever enough to hide the install button once it's installed.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, I think these are all my local. I think, did I install this version? Yeah, so nice. It shouldn't pop up. Oh, it did. Okay. I've probably got it in a confused state by having about 10 versions open.
Yeah.
Wow. No worries.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is very cool. I guess, I mean, we got a ton of great questions, which is really, really cool. I think, like going way back to the beginning, it's exciting to see that you're able to like launch an active site. You're running a business, in production, and you're depending on Blazor, and it's also cool to see that you are able to take advantage of new features as they're coming up, and they make your site load faster and run better. And so that's neat too.
Yeah, it's really great to see the blend of stuff we shipped in .NET 5, stuff that's coming up in .NET 6. You mentioned the state persistence. AOT is another thing that's coming in .NET 6 that's going to be a boon for performance and lots of improvements. And it's great to see, like, you could really kind of turn the dial on how productive you want to be and what kinds of things you want to improve on. You mentioned moving from JavaScript to C# for your Stripe integration. So lots of ways you can tweak your developer experience, like maximize productivity and like getting an app out the door for your customers.
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely. And one thing that we are excited about is the .NET MAUI. So I think Josh, the other developer who's helped me on this, he's already started having a look at some of the previews and getting that. So
awesome. Yeah, we just had a question come in about that John just flashed on the screen. So it's cool to see that you're thinking about starting to incorporate some of that stuff into your app.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. Well, one exciting thing for people. We've got like the number of viewers keeps going up, which is actually pretty neat. But we have a fun thing as we close out. We have a cool promo video that you sent us over, so we can kind of play that as we end the show up. So, awesome. All right. So thanks a bunch, Steve, and it's exciting to see what you're doing, and keep us up to date as you keep building this out. This is neat.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to more blog posts on your experience with Blazor moving forward.
Brilliant. Yeah, I started on my next one, so yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Okay, and here we go with the cool promo video. Bye, everybody.
We are about the love of pro wrestling. We are the pre-match entrance and the post-match interview. We are the passion. We are the fun. We are Pete Dunne. We are the tricks, the risks, the crunching drop kicks. We are the crowd pleasers, the nail biters, and the risk takers. We are the art in the ring. We are the bright lights. We are the squared circle and the life of the fight. To re-watch our favorite wrestlers' moments. To live and breathe through the eyes of their opponents. We build the vision for you to explore here at Powered Forward.